Hello and welcome back. In this very first lesson in this section on routes and HTTP methods, we are going to look at the .route, and for that I'm already in the project folder L19, and let's go ahead and create our app.py file. Now what we are going to try and look at is different ways in which we can use the app.route or .route. It could be app, or we could have some other name there as well. So to get started, as usual, let's import modules. So from Flask, import Flask with uppercase F. Then we import request, URL for, and we are also going to import the blueprint. And in this video, I'll just mention what blueprint is, and then maybe we could do a separate video on blueprint example. We can initialize the Flask app by typing app is equal to Flask and underscore underscore name. Now, several things in this lesson could be repetition of what we have already covered, but this is just to bring it all together in just one lesson. All right, so to get started, here is the first item, which is just a basic route and uh, home page. So route, so it's a basic route, and what I mean by basic route is if we create a decorator app.route, here we can put a forward slash, and then below this we can write the function, which is def is equal to home page, and here I'm going to return a string. So return welcome to the home page, and uh, so this is what we are going to print, and then in the end we would always have this if name underscore underscore is equal to 2 times, and then inside of the quotation marks we have main underscore underscore. So with that, then let's now see uh, how what happens if we run this. So let me just write down app.run debug is equal to true. So if you come down here in the terminal, type python app.py, and if we go in here and go to this root URL, run this, we see the welcome to the home page method, and that is what we already know. Now there is something new here, and that is we could have more than one routes specified for this same view function. So this we are calling this as the view function, and for example we could have another route pointing to the same function, and this time this is going to be home. Let's say basic route, and let's call this multiple routes. So if we now you see that as soon as I saved this, it automatically updated, and if I run this, we do see that. And if we now put forward slash home in front of it and run this, we still get the return string welcome to the home page. So that's awesome. So now you know that we can have one, or we can have more than one uh, routes linked to the same view function. The next thing we will look at is uh, can a string be part of that, of the route, route string. So what I mean by that is, let's say if we create a route app.route, and inside of this we create, let's say, path user, and then we specify inside of angle bracket username. So what we are saying is that the username is a variable, and as soon as if a person goes into a browser and types forward slash user in front of this base URL, like so, and then types the username, whatever name is, uh, and then presses enter, it's going that this username, in this case Nilesh, is going to be stored in username, and then that username is going to be brought in on the backend and then used in this function. So show user profile, let's say that is the function we have, and it takes in username as the input argument, and then it returns a string, f string, which says user profile page for, and here we can specify the username. So what this is going to do is, as soon as we press enter on this, let's do that like so, you see that user profile page for Nilesh. So whatever information we typed after the user or forward slash user was used by this function, and then passed back to the front end. So we went full circle from this front end to back end to again front end. Next, let's look at another similar method, uh, or other similar way we can use it. So I'm going to simply copy paste now, and instead of using this, what we are going to do is use forward slash post, and inside of these angle brackets, this time we'll say take an input which is going to be some sort of an integer, post id, and that integer is going to be stored in a variable post underscore id, and we are going to create a view function called show underscore post that takes in post underscore id as the input argument, and then returns a string using that value in that post id. So we can say post id, and here we say post id, and just mention that this only accepts integers. So what here is what is going to happen if we type post and then some integer value in front of it, let's say 123. Now as soon as we press enter in the browser, that 123 is going to get registered in here in the post id, and then this linked function would get called, where the post id value of 123 would be passed inside of that function. Then the return value would be this string which would have that post id in it, and that would be sent back to the browser, that we should be able to see. And as you can see, post id 123 accepts only integers, right? So that's how this would work. And just for sake of out of curiosity, why, because we are saying it accepts only integers, what happens if we say we pass in 1 dot 2 3, and here you can see this says not found, and that is because we are specifying that it has to be integer value after post. Now just as we are able to use the integer, you may have already guessed it, what happens if we use a float? Is that allowed? Can we use float value? And the answer is yes. Let's say float, so all we have to do is replace the int by float, and here I'm going to use another variable name score, and instead of show post I'm going to say show score, and of course we need to change this to score. Now inside of this we can alert the user that your score is score. All right, now if we go in here and type score, and let's say the score is let's say 50, run this, and no url found, and that is because this is expecting, so this our decorator is expecting a float value, and so we need to have float in there. So let's say 50.1, and right away we see that works, and the score is, your score is 50.1, gets sent back to the browser. Right, let's keep going, and now what we'll do is look at another um, way in which we can use the dot route, and that's where we can pass a path. So if we say app.route, and here within quotation marks, let's say files, and so we have files, and within angle brackets, you know that when it's angle brackets, some value is going to be coming in that the user types. So path, that's what we are going to tell Flask that that's the value that's going to come in file path. That's the variable. If we now write the function show file that takes in the file path and returns the file path. So that's all we are going to do. So here we'll say accessing file at file path, and now when we run this, let's say we go here, type file, and file path, let's say desktop, data sets, and maybe iris.csv. That's the file. I run this, and we see that nothing has happened. All right, figured out what the problem was. Missing a s there, and when we run this, we see that we get the complete path to the file. Next, let's keep going, and I'm going to create some space here. Number 6, and this time we'll use something called as a UUID. So copy paste that, and for that I'm going to import UUID, and in here we are going to type item, and we are going to specify that the type of data that's going to come in is UUID, and then we can give it a variable name called item ID, and the function name is, let's say, get item, and this would take in the item underscore ID, and finally we can send a string to the browser back, item UID, and this is going to be item ID as here. Right, so what is UUID? So if I go to the Wikipedia page, it's a universally unique identifier, and it looks something like this, and usually used to uniquely identify objects in a computer system. So what I'm going to do is copy this, and we go back in the browser. So that is the base URL we have, and in front of that I'm going to type item, and then paste the UUID in front of it, and then run this, and you see that it does register and recognize that it is in fact a UUID, and we see the item UUID sent back to the browser. Now if you are wondering, well, why do we have to have that as an item, like why do we have to have that as a UUID? Why can't we just leave it as item ID and then run this? So let's try and run this as is, and this would again run. So so no issues there. So if I run this, save that, and run this again, so that does work fine. So that value is taken in as item ID. So if we change this to something like ABC, and ABC, save that, and then uh, run this again, it'll work. But I think having that input string uh, identified as UUID probably would make it useful to use some inbuilt functionalities in that module to work with this type of item data. Let's keep going. Next, we are going to look at something uh, called as the get post methods, not in detail but just in context of route. We already have done this, so you already know what I'm going to be typing. So app.route, and in here, let's say the page we are working on is a login page. Now in here we can specify methods is equal to get and post. So by default, I think it's the get method, and we need to, if we are going to use some post functionality, like the user submits something, we need to specify the method post, and then we can create our function login, and this function we are going to use a if condition. So if a request dot method is equal to post, then we are going to return a string that says logging in with post. Else, no else. If that's the case, we can simply then say return. If that's not the case, it's simply going to return login page with get. And this is important because if we are trying to submit some information using a form, then these get and post methods would come into play. We are going to look at them in further detail later on, but in this route lesson, we are just going to mention them and see how they work. So login, and here we say this is login page with get, and had we post something here, then we would have gotten logging in with the post. The next method, let's say number 8, and I'm going to create more space there. App.route, and this is dashboard, comma, and this is where we are going to specify endpoint. And what I mean by endpoint is dashboard underscore page. So what endpoint means is uh, the name of the function. So if we have a function below this, let's say the function is show dashboard, and this returns f string. This is the dashboard, and then we break and then type url for, and we specify dashboard page, right? So what we are trying to do is, rather than using this show dashboard right here or anywhere in the code, we can use the name endpoint. So if it so happens that we have the same we have a function with the same name, but then we have a different endpoint, then that endpoint will sort of recognize that what uh, function this is referring to. So let's save this and go in the browser and type uh, dashboard, and as you can see, this says this is the dashboard. And just to check what we said was correct, I'm going to let's say create another uh, sort of app.route here, and call this dashboard page 2, and we are going to access dashboard page 2, except dashboard I'm going to put the letter word 2 here. So what we would hope to see here is that If we now run, uh, let's say dashboard uh, 2, not the same dashboard, let's say dashboard 2, then we should be able to see this dashboard 2. So going back to the browser, type 2 and run this, and you see that even though we have the same view function name, just because we had a different endpoint, a different function was triggered, and that's what we see here in the output. Next, let's keep going, and for number 9, so now what we are going to look at is, is the slashes. So if we use app.route and we say products and put a forward slash in front of it, and then say strict underscore slashes is equal to false, and then create a function def products and then return a string product listing works with or without trailing slash. All right, so what this is saying is that if a user comes into the browser here and types products without a forward slash in the end, it will work. If the user comes into the browser, types with a forward slash in front of products, it will still work. However, if we do not specify strict is equal to false, if we just say that, and now if we try and run the products by itself, it will work. But if we put a forward slash in front of products, then it I was hoping it will crash. So let's try and run this again. No, right. So as you can see, this forward slash in front of products, it does not like it, and so that's the reason why we need to we can put strict underscore slashes is equal to false. As soon as we do that, and when we run this page, it works just fine. And coming towards the end now, here is another important functionality that we can use, and that is called blueprint. So this is the blueprint route, and we will have a separate video on this. So it's okay if you do not completely understand what I'm about to talk, but just know that we can use this with app.route or something.route. What we are going to do is create another instance of the app, say admin app is equal to blueprint, and inside of this we are going to give this a name, admin. So in the browser, whatever view functions are, whatever routes we have, this will be sort of a prefix to that. So admin, then we have the regular underscore underscore name underscore underscore, and the URL, sorry, URL prefix is equal to, so this is the prefix for admin, and that was just the name. Now with that initialized, we are going to create two different routes, and now we are going to use admin underscore app instead of app.route, right? Admin app dot route, that's what we are going to use, and then in front of that is a settings. Rest of it, everything is the same as what we have been in, and we create a function admin underscore settings, and this simply returns a string return admin settings page. All right, so that's one, and then we create another decorator admin underscore app dot route, and here we are going to, let's say, get the user ID. So this is going to be forward slash users forward slash, and then we make sure data type is an integer and takes in the user ID. So the function below that would be def admin underscore user takes in user underscore id as the input argument, then returns an f string with admin panel viewing user number, and here we put the user id, right? So what we are trying to do here is we are using a different instance of the app and then using routes specific to that instance, which can be accessed by this prefix / admin. And in the end we need to register the blueprint, so we say app dot register underscore blueprint, and we specify what blueprint. So we need to somehow tie this independent block back to the main Flask app, because it won't run independently. We have to have the uh, base Flask somehow connected to this, and that is what we are trying to do here. App.register underscore blueprint, and here we specify admin underscore app, because that's what we have initialized here. So let's save this, and hopefully this is it says name is not defined. Okay, there's a typo, there's 3 underscores, so just need 2. I'm going to clear this and run python app.py. Hopefully this should run. Again we have an error. Oh, there is a missing angle bracket. All right, so we run that again. We can clear this python app.py, and looks like it is running now. Here is what we can do now is go back to the base URL, then we say /admin, so that's the URL prefix we said we would use. And then we can use the whatever string we have in the decorator. So let's first go to settings and run this, and you see we get the string admin settings page, which is coming from here. And now if we type users and some integer value after the admin, let's say users / maybe 123, and run this, we see that admin panel viewing user number 123. Awesome. So blueprint helps us write modular blocks of code, and we will go into detail of that in a separate video. But that is how blueprint can also work with the route. Finally, number 11. Let's create how we can use URL for. So at app.route, we are back to app.route, and then here we say route, links, and we create a function show underscore links open close parenthesis, and we return a f string like so, and inside of this we are going to type home page, and so URL for home page. And what is the URL for home page? Just a home page. Then we say break, and we are now going to repeat the same thing for other links. And so I'm going to copy paste a bunch of time, and then let's say this one is for user profile. And so what we have here is show underscore user underscore profile, and show user profile is, so we have show dashboard, show file, show score, show post. Here we have show user profile number 2, and after this we are also going to specify the username, because we that function is expecting some value, and that's what we are putting there. Then dashboard, and for dashboard we are going to use the endpoint name we specified, dashboard underscore page. And after that let's use the login, and for login we simply have the login. Finally, for admin settings, uh, here we are going to use admin dot admin underscore settings. All right, so with this, uh, we have now put all the values for URL for. We now go back in the browser. I think I've saved this. You see that this has updated. We can go back in the browser and type links, and as you can see, we have all the links displayed to us on the browser, in the browser: homepage, user profile, dashboard, login, and admin settings. So this was quite an exhaustive list of various ways in which we can use the dot route functionality in Flask. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please do let me know in the comment section below. I hope to see you all in the next lesson. Until then, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.